How's it going, guys? Bass and Bill 96 here, taking over the MTB channel for the day, and today we're going to be talking about how to generate more bites when you're fishing out deep in the middle of summer. So basically, throughout this video, we're going to be breaking apart two of my favorite techniques for catching deep fish in the middle of summer. One is catching them on a deep crankbait, and two is catching them on a drop shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down when you throw which one of these things, the equipment that you need to throw a drop shot or the equipment that you need to throw a deep crank, and then we're going to catch them. So it's no secret that bass move out deep in the middle of summer. There are definitely bass that live up shallow year long, but the vast majority of fish move out deep. They search out colder water, they follow the bait fish, and that's what we're kind of trying to target today. So my go-to way to catch fish out deep is definitely the drop shot. Today we're going to be fishing a little 𝗙𝗲𝗃 by 𝗙𝗃𝗃, and we're going to probably catch a bunch of fish. But there are days when you can't really catch fish on a drop shot, and that's when you got to throw the deep crank. So conditions that I like throwing the drop shot in are conditions like we have today. It's fairly calm outside, there's not a ton of waves, there's not a ton of wind, we have a good amount of sun, there are a few clouds in the sky, but overall we have a lot of light, and that's going to drive those fish down to the bottom of the water. The exact opposite is true when you're fishing the deep crankbait. So when I pull the deep crankbait out, it's usually when we have a lot of cloud cover, and it's usually when we have a ton of wind. It's basically two polar opposite ways to catch the fish. So they both work, but you just use them in different situations. For today, we're going to be throwing this little drop shot. We're going to be throwing that 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃. Let me rig this thing up real quick. So for my drop shot setup, I like throwing like a 7-foot or 7'3" medium light action rod. You want something that has a real whippy tip. You can get further casts and you could feel those really light bites. I like throwing a 2500 series spinning reel. Doesn't really matter the brand, anything like that. Just as long as you got like a 2500 series, nothing that's too big, nothing that's too small. You want a reel that's got really good drag because you're fighting fish on light lines. You want to make sure that you're able to play those fish properly. As far as drop shot leader length goes, I do anything from 10 inches all the way up until 24 inches, 2-foot long leader, but usually about a 12-inch leader, about a foot long is my standard size. And then I'm going to throw this little 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃. All I do for the 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃 is you take this bait and you just nose rig it right on there, just like so. And this thing's gonna stand straight out, it's gonna dance in the water right above the bottom, right where those fish are sitting. That's pretty much the setup for drop shot fishing. As far as what you're looking to target, I'm gonna pull up some navionics so you guys can kind of see what I'm looking at here, but you want to try to find some of the steeper breaks in the lake, and that's where I would start. You want to go to those deep breaks, you want to try to find grass down there, and that's where you're gonna catch fish. So without further ado, let's hop into it with this drop shot here. There we go. There we go. First one. First one. Little largemouth on that 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃. I'll show you guys what we're doing here in a second. Exactly what we're fishing right now. Decent little largie. And she hit it pretty much right when it touched the bottom there. That's kind of how they do it a lot, honestly, with the drop shot. A little smaller than I thought. I thought she was about a 15, 16 incher, but she's maybe a 12 or 13 incher. But got that on that little 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃, little 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗃 fish. Nice first one of the day. All right, so what we are targeting right now is a little main lake point here. We are sitting in currently 23 feet of water. That fish came out of about 15. I cast it up on the break, and what they're doing sitting right on that break is they're kind of using that as a ladder. So in the middle of the day, like right now it's about 12 o'clock, midday, sunny skies, middle of summer. Those fish, they go down to the bottom, and they don't want to really do that much because in the summer, you know, they don't want to waste their energy when it's so hot outside to try to chase down all these minnows and all this food. So what they do is they kind of sit down in the depths, they kind of just chill out for a while, and then early in the morning they'll go up shallow to feed, and then late at night they go up shallow to feed. But in the middle of the day, you could still catch them. But what you got to do is you just got to target them a little bit deeper, and you know, a lot of times either using something like a drop shot, a nice little finesse presentation that they'll, you know, not mind eating because they don't have to chase it down or anything, or what we're going to talk about later, and that's deep crankbait fishing, where you're pretty much getting a reaction strike. You're not actually, you know, causing the fish to want to eat, but you rip it past their face and they kind of just do it out of instinct. There he is. There he is. Look, we're sitting in 20 feet of water right here. That fish was deep, dude. This might be a smallmouth. She's fighting like a smallie. Please get in here. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's a big pike. Oh God. Okay, we need to not break this off, please. It's a nice sized pike, guys. Well, that proves it. Not only bass go deep in the summer. A lot of times people, you know, they think that pike are like grass fish and they got to catch them up shallow, but I catch so many pike on a drop shot and a jig out deep. There she is. Dude, whoa. She's got some beautiful colors on her, man. That's absolutely gorgeous. Okay, look at that fish right there. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful, beautiful pike. Probably about a mid-20s or so. Not a giant, but she put up a crazy fight. That is awesome. We're gonna get her back in the water, but she came out of about 20 feet of water on that little 𝗙liche 𝗋𝗋. Nice, nice, nice fish. All right, back in the water for you, baby. There she goes, back down to the depths. All right, we're gonna move up to the next point now. There we go. There we go. Right off the second point. Oh, dude, I don't think I got that jump on camera, but she just got friggin' airborne, dude. Holy smokes. That's a decent one. Oh, baby, she's fighting. These southern Michigan bass, they fight like they're about 3 pounds bigger than they actually are. Come here, baby. All right, so that would be a solid little tournament keeper up here. Definitely not a giant or anything, but put up a flippin' fantastic fight. A good like 14, 15 inch bass right there. Nothing to write home about, but super, super fun. Like I said, I love catching fish out deep, guys, when you're throwing this super light line. But we're gonna get this fish back in the water right there. Nice little bass off this little tapering point here. See you later, mama. Go back down there. All right. So there's gonna come a time when you can't fish the drop shot because it's just too windy outside to even feel bites, and that's when the deep crank comes into play. As you can see today, like I said, we're fishing the drop shot, it's nice outside. I did not film the deep crankbait clips today because today would not be a good day for deep cranking. Those fish, they could see it too well. A crankbait doesn't look too natural. It's pretty much a reaction strike, so you need that chop on the water pretty much to deceive the fish into biting. If it's super calm and super sunny outside, they're gonna be able to see this thing from a mile away and they're not gonna eat it as good. You could still catch a few fish on it, but it's just not gonna be the deal. So the crankbait clips that I shot them yesterday when there was 30-mile-per-hour winds outside and I couldn't fish pretty much anything else aside from a crankbait. Got one, boys. And it's a freaking good one too. Okay. Solid little fish there, first one. Deep cranking. As far as crankbait gear goes though, I go with anything from a 7-foot all the way up until an 8-foot moderate action rod. You want something that's got a lot of give to it. You're gonna be able to sling those crankbaits a lot further, and that's super key to deep cranking because you wanna make the furthest cast that you possibly can because that's gonna allow that crankbait to run to its maximum true depth. Another thing that comes into play with crankbait fishing and when you're trying to get that crankbait down deep is how thick your line is. So a lot of times if you guys open up a package like this, Carl's Bait and Tackle deep crankbait for example, says it runs from 10 to 15 feet. And why does it say 10 to 15 feet? Why doesn't it just say, you know, this crankbait runs 12 feet deep or whatever? That's because you guys can affect how deep the crankbait runs a lot just with how long your rod is, how fast you're cranking, and how thick your line is. So I like cranking with like 12 to 14 pound tests. You can get away with cranking with 10-pound tests, but you know, if you're fishing a really heavy deep crankbait and slinging that thing a lot, there's a good chance that you're gonna break it off at some point. But the lighter the line that you're using, the deeper that crankbait is gonna run. So for example, right on this one, I have 14-pound tests. And yesterday when I was fishing this thing, I was only getting the crankbait down to about 12 feet of water, so not super deep. If I would have ran 10-pound tests, I could have easily got 15, 16 foot out of this easily with the exact same crankbait. That definitely plays a big role in it. And then last but not least is your reel. I like throwing a 5:1 or a 6:1, like somewhere in that range gear ratio reel. If you have one that's too fast, you're gonna be ripping that crankbait so quick without you even knowing it. Because a 7:1 or 8:1 gear ratio reel is picking up so much line per turn that your crankbait's gonna be whizzing past those fish faster than they want to chase a bait, you know? So I like sticking with slower gear ratio reels, and then I still reel it pretty quick, but the crankbait's not actually moving as fast as if I was using a 7:1 or 8:1 gear ratio reel. Key areas that you want to target when you're throwing a deep crankbait, pretty much the same as drop shot fishing. You want to target those really steep breaks. So if there's an area in the lake where you're like 20 yards off the bank and you're sitting in 20 feet of water, that's where you want to start. And then same thing with the drop shot. You want to try to find some cover down there. So if you could find some grass, you want to be ripping this crankbait through grass. Make sure that it's making bottom contact at all times if possible. But that is pretty much it. You want to make the furthest cast you can. You want to make sure this thing's grinding the bottom, and you're going to catch more fish on a deep crankbait, that's for sure. Got one on there. Oh, she got off. She threw it. Oh, we got one on, dude. It's a smallmouth. We got us a small jaw. The bites are very hard to tell, especially when it's this windy outside. I mean, I can't feel anything at all. So I caught a few fish on the deep crankbait, I caught a few fish on the drop shot. I hope you guys learned a lot from today's video. Deep fishing can be super productive in the summer. They tend to school up in the summer out deep too, where if you're fishing up shallow, you might get some of those bigger bites, but you know, those fish are secluded, they're really solitary, and they're kind of off doing their own thing. But the chances that if you catch one, that there's more down there are super high. So make sure that you're picking those areas apart when you guys get a bite. But thank you to MTB for letting me take over the channel today, and I hope you guys learned something today, but I will catch you guys in the next video.